Something just cracked in the skies above us. Three titans, Emirates, KLM, and Qantas, didn't whisper, they roared. In one collective breath, they turned their backs on Boeing and embraced Airbus. No warning, no build-up, just a clean, calculated shift that feels less like business and more like betrayal. For decades, Boeing aircraft carried their flags, their passengers, their pride. But loyalty doesn't survive broken trust. This isn't a simple fleet update. This is a rebellion. Multi-billion-dollar orders have been signed, and not one of them points back to Seattle. From long-haul giants to nimble narrowbodies, Airbus is suddenly everywhere. Meanwhile, Boeing watches from the ground. And here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. The cracks started years ago. We just didn't see them. Until now. So buckle up, because what's happening behind the scenes is far more explosive than any press release. If you're tired of the polished PR and want the real story, hit like, tap subscribe, and let's climb into the cockpit of this aviation upheaval. Loyalty in aviation doesn't die overnight. It bleeds out, quietly, deal by deal. At the center of this unraveling is Emirates, once Boeing's loudest advocate, now its most sobering reality check. For years, Emirates stood tall on a Boeing backbone. The 777 wasn't just an aircraft. It was the airline's signature move, its workhorse, its profit machine. Even when Airbus pitched shiny new concepts, Emirates doubled down on Boeing metal. Faith like that doesn't waver easily. But it cracked. First in 2019. Then again, much louder, in 2023. In the span of just a few years, Emirates placed firm orders for 65 Airbus A350s, walking back a cancelled deal from a decade ago. That alone raised eyebrows. But it's what Emirates didn't order that made insiders sweat. No 777X. No reaffirmation of trust in Boeing's next-gen lineup. Just silence and the unmistakable hum of change. But this story isn't just about one airline. It's a pattern now. A pattern stitched across continents. Fly northwest, and you land in Amsterdam, the home of KLM, one of Boeing's oldest and most reliable allies. For decades, the Dutch flag carrier built its global reach on Boeing aircraft. In fact, 84% of KLM's fleet is Boeing-made. That's not just business. That's legacy. So when KLM announced it was modernizing its fleet, most people expected a handshake deal with Boeing. New 787s? Maybe a few MAX jets to replace the aging 737s? It was almost a given. Instead, the press release hit like a left hook. 134 Airbus jets. Signed. Locked. Announced to the world. No leaks. No trial balloons. Just a sharp pivot. Why? Because KLM's narrowbody fleet is old. The 737s are averaging 18 years. Repairs are piling up. Emissions targets are tightening. And the numbers didn't lie. Airbus's A320neo family offered lower fuel burn, more range, more seats, and a greener footprint. Even KLM's long-haul strategy shifted, quietly moving toward the A350, the same aircraft that once competed against Boeing's Dreamliner. 5 years earlier, KLM's CEO said they'd fly only 777s and 787s in the future. But the future, it turns out, doesn't care about loyalty. It cares about logistics. And speaking of future, there's one airline that's quite literally trying to fly into it. Qantas. If there was ever an airline with Boeing woven into its DNA, it was Qantas. The 737 dominated its domestic network. The 717 handled the short hops. And long haul? Boeing all the way, from the iconic 747 to the sleek 787. Then, in 2021, the announcement came. Qantas was replacing its domestic fleet. Not with Boeing's, but with Airbus. 20 A321 XLRs. 20 A220-300s. 94 more Airbuses waiting for the green light. And it didn't stop there. The real shock came with Project Sunrise, ultra-long-haul flights connecting Australia to cities like New York and London non-stop. Boeing pitched the 777X for the mission. It was a natural fit. Powerful. Capable. Familiar. But Qantas said no. They ordered 12 Airbus A350-1000s, not just for their specs, but for something harder to quantify, confidence. Airbus promised deliveries. Boeing offered delays. Airbus had proven range. Boeing had projections. And then there was the 737 MAX problem. The smaller MAX 7, the ideal replacement for Qantas's 717s, still uncertified, still in limbo. Meanwhile, Airbus's A220 was ready to fly. So what do we call this? A trend? A coincidence? Let's be honest, it's a migration. A deliberate, strategic movement away from a manufacturer once seen as untouchable. And this mass migration, it isn't just happening at the top with wide-body jets. No, the real bloodbath is happening in the trenches. The narrow-body market. Short-haul workhorses. The backbone of airline operations. This is where the Airbus-Boeing battle turns brutal. Let's start with the two titans, the A320neo vs the 737 MAX 10. On paper, the margins look small. Fuel efficiency? 15% for Airbus, 14% for Boeing. Range? The A320neo stretches to 4,620 miles, while the MAX 10 falls slightly behind at 4,392 miles. But in aviation, small margins equal millions in fuel costs. And one extra hour of range? That unlocks entire new routes. Then there's capacity, and Airbus flexes hard. The A321neo, stretched to its limit, can seat up to 244 passengers. Boeing's MAX 10 taps out at 204. That's 40 empty seats per flight, per route, per day. More range, more seats, lower fuel burn. It's not just a better plane, it's a better business model. And for passengers, Airbus offers a wider cabin, allowing for more aisle space, larger bins, and a more comfortable ride, especially on those brutal 5-hour hops. So it makes sense that Qantas tapped Airbus's A220-300 to replace its aging Boeing 717s. Boeing's MAX 7 would have been the ideal rival, but it's still stuck in certification purgatory. Time doesn't wait for paperwork. But if there's one aircraft Boeing truly fears, it's this one, the A321XLR. XLR doesn't just stand for extra long range. It stands for disruption. This jet is doing what only wide-bodies could do a decade ago. Flying 8,700 kilometers on a single tank, over 3,000 kilometers more than the MAX 10. Suddenly, thinner international routes are back on the map, without needing a 787 or 777. And it doesn't stop at distance. The A321XLR is 30% more fuel efficient than the previous generation aircraft, and that efficiency unlocks serious profit margins. Add in more belly cargo space, and airlines like Qantas now have a narrowbody that doubles as a regional freighter. What does Boeing have in this category? Nothing. At least not yet. The MAX 10 is still waiting for certification, a ghost plane in a market that's already moving on. And even when it does get approval, it won't match the XLR in range, cargo, or emissions. So now the game's changed. Airlines don't just pick based on loyalty or legacy, they pick what works. What flies farther, carries more, costs less. And right now, that answer isn't Boeing. And if Airbus is stealing Boeing's lunch in the narrowbody market, in the widebody space, they're taking the whole damn kitchen. This was Boeing's stronghold, the long-range arena dominated by the 777 and 787 Dreamliner. For years, no one questioned it. Airbus had tried, sure, but the A340 couldn't keep up. Even the original A350 stumbled out of the gate. Then came the A350 XWB, and everything flipped. Let's talk numbers. The A350-900 and A350-1000 can fly between 9,300 to 10,300 miles. Compare that to the 787, which maxes out around 8,460 miles, and the 777X, Boeing's would-be savior, which still hasn't been certified. That extra range? It's a game changer. It means more direct flights, fewer layovers, and better route economics. And capacity? The A350-1000 can carry up to 440 passengers in high-density layouts, comfortably beating both the Dreamliner and even the delayed 777X. Fuel efficiency, noise levels, cabin pressurization. The A350 wins across the board. It's quieter, smoother, burns less, and delivers more. That's why KLM, Qantas, and even Emirates, Boeing's crown jewel, all leaned toward the A350 when refreshing their long-haul fleets. But here's the thing, it's not just about specs. It's about trust. Because even when Boeing builds a competitive plane on paper, airlines have stopped believing it'll actually arrive. Why? Because Boeing is no longer just battling Airbus. It's battling itself. Let's rewind to 2019, when the cracks became impossible to ignore. The 737 MAX crashes killed 346 people. The investigation revealed something devastating. Boeing knew. The MCAS software that led to both crashes had been quietly installed, and pilots were never fully trained to handle it. Why? To save money, to skip retraining, to speed up certification. And it cost lives. That scandal shattered public trust. But the damage didn't stop there. Since then, Boeing has been plagued with whistleblower leaks, production flaws, and delivery delays across its entire wide-body lineup, including the once reliable 787. Reports of loose fuselage components, missed inspections, and substandard safety culture keep surfacing. The 777X, Boeing's most advanced wide-body to date, was originally set to fly commercially by 2020. Now, maybe 2026, if nothing else goes wrong. For decades, Boeing enjoyed a kind of silent privilege, quicker certifications, tighter ties to regulators, and the benefit of doubt when things got complicated. But that era ended in 2019. 2 crashes. 346 lives lost. The MAX scandal didn't just ground a jet, it grounded Boeing's credibility. Now, nothing moves fast anymore. And this isn't just about punishment, it's about consequence. After the MCAS cover-up and years of overlooked quality control, every new Boeing aircraft now faces intense scrutiny from the FAA and global aviation watchdogs. Certification delays that once lasted months now stretch into years. Just look at the 777X, Boeing's most ambitious widebody to date. Originally planned for delivery in 2020, it's now looking at a 2026 launch at best, buried in compliance testing, software revisions, and design overhauls. Every delay costs billions, but worse, it costs trust. Airlines don't wait anymore. They plan networks years in advance. They rely on certainty. And Boeing can't offer that right now. Not with regulators in the cockpit. And while Boeing's stuck chasing paperwork, Airbus is shipping planes. Fast. Let's look at hard data, and it's not even close. In just the first half of 2024, Airbus delivered 323 aircraft to 65 customers. Boeing? 175. Less than half. This isn't a one-time fluke, it's a systemic problem. Boeing's supply chain is struggling. Its manufacturing lines are short-staffed and under pressure. Quality control failures have led to paused deliveries, including 787s found with misaligned fuselage sections and incomplete inspections. And while Boeing investigates, retests, and reworks, Airbus flies ahead. This delivery gap is critical, especially now. Post-pandemic demand is surging. Airlines are scrambling to scale up. Routes that were shuttered in 2020 are reopening with vengeance in 2025. Leisure and business travel are booming. For airlines, time is revenue, and delays are lethal. That's why we're seeing Emirates, KLM, Qantas, and dozens of others put money where performance lives. Airbus jets aren't just ready sooner, they're showing up without drama. And here's the real kicker. Airbus isn't just winning orders. It's winning confidence. Behind the scenes, airlines are quietly placing backup orders with Airbus as insurance, in case Boeing can't deliver on time. Leasing firms are doing the same. It's no longer about choosing a favorite. It's about hedging against a manufacturer that's been inconsistent for years. And Boeing knows it. The recent announcement that CEO Dave Calhoun is stepping down by the end of 2024 wasn't a routine transition. It was damage control. A signal to investors that Boeing is ready to clean house and rebuild, again. But airlines aren't waiting around for corporate reshuffles. They're operating in the real world, where planes need to be delivered, certified, and flying passengers on time. That's where Airbus has built a ruthless advantage. And as if late deliveries and grounded jets weren't enough, there's one more force tilting the battlefield in Airbus's favor, and this one isn't going away. The environment. The aviation world is entering a new age, one where climate targets are no longer optional. Governments are tightening emission caps. Carbon pricing is rising. Airlines are being pushed, sometimes dragged, towards sustainability whether they're ready or not. And right now, Airbus is simply more aligned with that future. Let's break it down. Every new aircraft is now judged by more than just fuel burn and range. It's judged by its long-term carbon footprint. Regulators across Europe, North America, and Asia are rolling out roadmaps that penalize inefficiency and reward sustainable tech. The A320neo family was designed with this era in mind. Its engines burn less fuel, its lighter frame reduces drag, and its emissions profile is measurably lower than anything Boeing has in full-scale production. The A321XLR takes that even further, offering long-haul performance with narrow-body fuel consumption. That's not just an operating cost win, that's a carbon accounting win. And on the wide-body front, the A350 is Airbus's crown jewel in sustainability. Built with over 50% composite materials, equipped with next-gen Rolls-Royce engines, and pressurized for passenger comfort with lower cabin altitude, it's a plane built for long-haul, low-emission operations. Compare that to Boeing's lineup, and the cracks widen. The 787 Dreamliner? Still competitive. But the 777X, the jet Boeing desperately wants to be its next flagship, is heavy, delayed, and likely to face regulatory friction in climate-conscious markets. Even before passengers board, the industry is already counting carbon. Airlines know this. That's why you're seeing major carriers, from Qantas to Air France, from Singapore Airlines to Iberia, increasingly lean into Airbus when updating their fleets. Sustainability isn't a box to check. It's a deal breaker. And it's not just policy, it's passenger behavior too. Today's travelers, especially Gen Z and millennials, are factoring environmental impact into their flying decisions. Airlines with greener fleets are gaining public favor, loyalty, and media coverage. Boeing can't afford to fall behind in this arena, but that's exactly what's happening. Meanwhile, Airbus is already looking past jet fuel. They're investing heavily in hydrogen-powered aircraft, zero-emission propulsion, and next-gen battery systems. They've partnered with multiple governments, secured EU funding, and are testing tech for aircraft that won't just burn less, they'll burn nothing at all. Boeing? It's still recovering from yesterday's disasters, while Airbus is designing for a world that doesn't even exist yet. And that's the haunting truth behind this whole saga. This shift in loyalty from Boeing to Airbus, it isn't just about specs. It's not just about fuel numbers or delayed certifications. It's about trust in the future. When Emirates, KLM, and Qantas each turned to Airbus, they weren't just buying planes. They were making bets. Bets on which company would lead the next 20 years of aviation, not the last 20. And right now, those bets aren't going to Boeing. They're going to the manufacturer with consistent delivery, cleaner engines, better regulatory alignment, and a clear plan for what's next. Airbus didn't just win orders, it won the narrative. It became the safe choice, the smart choice, the future-ready choice. And unless Boeing makes a radical shift, not just in technology, but in culture, accountability, and vision, this could be the new normal. The skies are shifting. The trust is evaporating. And Boeing, once the undisputed king of aviation, now finds itself looking up at a rival that refuses to stop climbing. This wasn't a one-time stumble. This was the tipping point. If you've made it this far, thank you. We don't just tell stories. We chase the ones most people are afraid to touch. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and join us as we keep unraveling the truths that reshape industries. Because in this game, One wrong turn, and the giants fall hard.